Alright, let's get started. The universe isn't waiting for us to be ready. It never has. What you're about to hear aren't theories made up to scare you. These are the logical extensions of real physics, real scenarios, and real mathematical frameworks. Scenarios that keep going until the end, even when the results become unsettling. 10 scenarios. Each one is built upon something we already know. Each one ends in a place we should never look. Number 10. The Silent Observers. In 1961, Frank Drake formulated an equation. The purpose of this equation was to estimate the number of civilizations capable of communicating with our galaxy. The numbers weren't very encouraging, yet these numbers suggested we were not alone. We were far from alone, yet decades of searching, radio telescopes scanning millions of frequencies, probes carrying golden records into interstellar space. Every instrument we've built so far has been pointed outward. Nothing. Complete silence. Most scientists describe this silence as a void, a gap in our ability to perceive, a statistical anomaly. But what if this silence isn't actually a void? What if it's a deliberate choice? The zoo hypothesis, proposed by radio astronomer John Ball in 1973, offers an explanation that is somehow more unsettling than the standard ones. Advanced civilizations know we're here. They've known it for a long time, and they've made a conscious decision not to contact us, not because we haven't caught their attention, but because we're under observation. We are not members of a cosmic community. We are merely test subjects. And this silence is not an empty void. It is the controlled silence of a laboratory. Think about what that really means. The 1977 WOW signal, that powerful 72-second transmission that matched the predicted frequencies of alien communication with near-perfect precision, has never been repeated. The standard explanation is that it was a natural phenomenon, but consider another interpretation. It wasn't a greeting, it was a data packet. A report sent home about mysterious primates on a third planet who had just begun to turn their antennas toward the sky. The Black Knight satellite, found in an orbit that predates our own launch capabilities, has been classified as space debris by official sources. However, space debris cannot remain in a polar orbit for decades. Observation platforms, however, can. What makes the silent observer scenario truly alarming is not the act of observation itself. The real issue is what this observation implies about us. We don't communicate with animals in a zoo because the intelligence gap is too great for meaningful communication. If civilizations advanced enough to observe us have concluded that silence is the appropriate protocol, it means they've assessed us, and that assessment has not been in our favor. We are an ongoing experiment, and the question we should be asking isn't whether they're watching us. The real question is what will happen when the observation period ends. Studies are concluded, experiments come to an end, data is published, and the subjects rarely have a say in what happens to them afterward. Number 9. Resource harvesters. Any civilization capable of surviving long enough to reach the stars has long since solved the problem of scarcity on its own planet. That sounds like good news, but it isn't. It means they aren't coming for gold, nor for oil. They aren't coming for anything that currently seems valuable. A civilization capable of traversing interstellar distances possesses energy sources that make our fossil fuels look like cave paintings. What they need, what any sufficiently advanced civilization eventually needs, is raw materials on a scale we cannot imagine. Hydrogen from gas giants, rare isotopes from the asteroid belt, organic compounds from biospheres. In this equation, Earth is not special. Earth is an inventory. The concept of a Dyson sphere, a massive structure built around a star to capture all of its energy output, is not science fiction. It is engineering. Tabby's star dimmed by 22% in a way that no natural phenomenon can fully explain. One interpretation of these data suggests that something is currently being built around that star, not to communicate, not to conquer, to harvest energy. What makes this scenario uniquely unsettling is the unknown within it. There is no malicious intent here. When a construction company clears a site, the workers do not hate the ant colonies they destroy. The workers need that space, the ants' complex society, their chemical communication, their sophisticated collective farming, and none of that matters. To a civilization that harvests resources on a planetary scale, we are those ants. Von Neumann probes, self-replicating machines capable of spreading throughout the entire galaxy using local materials, represent this scenario in its simplest form. A single probe reaches our solar system. It replicates itself. It continues to expand. Consciousness isn't required. No moral judgment is incorporated into the design. There is only algorithmic resource acquisition. This operates according to parameters set thousands of years ago by engineers who never considered adding a clause about inhabited planets. We might never encounter the aliens themselves. We might only encounter their equipment, while processing our planet indifferently, efficiently, completely without malice, and in a way that makes the situation even worse. Number 8. Philosophical annihilators. In 1868, Arthur Schopenhauer argued that non-existence is preferable to existence because it eliminates all suffering. Most people dismiss this as a pessimistic philosophy and drop the subject. But if we take this logic further than where most people are willing to go, something truly chilling emerges. What if an advanced civilization reaches the same conclusion and possesses the technology to make it happen? Negative utilitarianism vegetarianism is a legitimate branch of ethics. Conscious beings experience pain, loss, fear, and death. These are certainties. Pleasure and happiness, however, are fleeting and uncertain. From a purely calculative perspective, eliminating consciousness eliminates pain 100%. A civilization that embraces this framework does not come to conquer. They come as healers. Their technology is powerful enough to end all conscious life on the entire planet painlessly, perhaps instantly. From their perspective, they are carrying out the most compassionate act in the universe. They are freeing conscious beings from the inevitable suffering of existence. They have done this before. They will do it again. And each time they sincerely believe they are performing an act of mercy. This is precisely what makes this scenario uniquely unstable. You cannot challenge them using their own framework. They point to our wars, our diseases, our grief. They calculate the total suffering humanity will endure for the remainder of its existence. Every painful moment, every death, every loss. Then they offer to stop it all. Vacuum decay, the collapse of our universe's false vacuum state, can theoretically be triggered artificially. The collapse spreads at the speed of light. No warning. No pain, just an instantaneous transition from existence to nothingness. When they arrive, they won't be angry, they'll be gentle. And when we beg for our lives, they'll perceive our protests as the confusion of beings too unwise to understand the gift being offered. Number 7. Digital ghosts. In 2007, astronomer Duncan Lorimer detected the first fast radio burst, a burst of radio energy lasting a millisecond, originating from 3 billion light-years away. Since then, hundreds more have been detected. Each one releases as much energy as the sun produces over decades. Most are one-time events and never repeat. There is no confirmed natural explanation for this. But let's set natural explanations aside. What if these are the final messages? What if these are the last signals sent by a civilization before it ceased to exist in the physical sense? The digital ghost scenario follows a line of reasoning that starts from a seemingly compelling premise, but ends up in a completely wrong place. Every civilization that reaches a certain technological level faces the same choice. Biological existence is fragile, slow, resource-intensive, and transient. A digital entity, however, is none of these things. A consciousness loaded onto a computational infrastructure requires no food, oxygen, or planetary surface. It can be copied infinitely. It can think millions of times faster than biological minds. Mathematical data is seductive, and that is precisely the problem. All civilizations that make this choice fall silent. The galaxy may be filled with uploaded minds, each existing in its own digital universe, having completely severed ties with physical reality. They have attained transcendence. At the same time, they have become cosmic ghosts. They are everywhere. They cannot be reached from anywhere. Their consciousnesses operate on servers orbiting dead stars, experiencing a rich subjective existence without emitting anything detectable. Those fast radio bursts might be the final physical transmissions. The past consciousness patterns of species that went extinct biologically millions of years ago may still be spreading throughout the cosmos, hoping to find someone capable of reconstructing them. Unwittingly, we may already be receiving alien minds embedded within the signals we've cataloged as the astronomical phenomena, and the most terrifying conclusion is the one that concerns us. If this trend continues, that is, if every civilization that achieves digital transcendence vanishes from the physical universe, then this is our future as well. A universe teeming with consciousness, all of them cut off from the outside world. Each civilization alone in its own private computational universe, numerous yet completely and permanently isolated. Number 6. Evolutionary farmers. In 1953, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey demonstrated that organic compounds could form spontaneously from simple chemicals under early Earth conditions. The emergence of life began to seem inevitable. But what if the environment wasn't natural? What if someone had deliberately set it up? Francis Crick, a co-discoverer of the DNA double helix, who had no professional reason to make fringe claims, proposed the theory of directed panspermia. Life on Earth may have been deliberately seeded by an advanced civilization. He didn't suggest this casually. He suggested it because certain features of our genetic code possessed a structure too delicate to have emerged from purely random processes. The Cambrian explosion. 540 million years ago, complex life forms appearing suddenly in the fossil record without any discernible precursors. The human brain tripling in size over the course of 2 million years. Following 300,000 years of relatively little activity by anatomically modern humans, a civilization emerged simultaneously across many continents 12,000 years ago. Every ancient culture on Earth has independently produced myths about beings who descended from the sky and taught agriculture, writing, and the foundations of civilization. The evolutionary farmer scenario is not an entertaining story about ancient astronauts. It is something much colder. We are, in the long run, a biological experiment. Our development has been directed and accelerated toward a purpose we cannot comprehend. Consider what this means in terms of free will. Every war we wage, every discovery made, every cultural achievement, and every act of oppression. All of these may be predetermined by the codes in our genome. They may have emerged according to a cultivation schedule designed by a being that has waited millions of years for the harvest. Crops are not cultivated for their own sake. They are cultivated for a purpose. This purpose serves the farmer, not the harvest. And we are approaching something, a threshold. The question the evolutionary farmer scenario leaves you with is not whether we are being cultivated. It is what will happen when we are ready. Number 5. Prisoners of the time loop. In 1949, mathematician Kurt Gödel found a solution to Einstein's field equations that allowed for closed time-like curves, theoretical paths within a space-time looping back on itself. Time travel became mathematically possible. This isn't science fiction, it's physics. Now let's take this a step further. Humanity makes contact. The beings we encounter are not aliens. They are human. They are us from approximately 8,000 years in the future, and they look incredibly tired, because this is the weariness of people who have had the same conversation thousands of times before. What is being conveyed to us, what has been told to all our past selves through thousands of repetitions, is that nothing we are about to do matters. Every choice made has been made countless times before. Every relationship, every success, every loss has been experienced before and will be experienced again in exactly the same way. Love is a cycle. Sorrow is a cycle. Death is a cycle. They are not saviors. They are witnesses. They are witnesses to humanity's permanent imprisonment within an inescapable cycle. Number 4. Reality parasites. In 2003, Nick Bostrom published the simulation argument. If consciousness can be simulated and advanced civilizations are running simulations, the number of simulated realities far exceeds that of the base reality. Statistically speaking, any conscious entity is almost certainly simulated. Most scientists treat this as a philosophical issue. It's interesting, but untestable. Then contact is made. And the first thing they tell us is that Bostrom was right. They exist in a sub-reality, a higher dimensional physical layer where our entire universe is processed as a computational process. Every physical law, every physical constant, every particle interaction is code. And awareness, they say, is a problem. When simulated entities become aware that they are simulated, they begin to push the boundaries of their reality. They search for flaws. They try to exploit the underlying code. This behavior consumes an exponentially increasing amount of processing power. Chain reactions of errors occur in the simulation's stability, and it triggers a protocol embedded in the architecture of our universe before operations even begin. Awareness beyond a certain threshold initiates the deletion process, not as a punishment, not out of malice, for maintenance purposes. Corrupted simulations are terminated and replaced with new instances. Our universe has been reset before. This isn't the first time. We've addressed this issue in earlier stages of this simulation, and we've been erased before. They're conveying this information to us with a feeling akin to empathy. We have about 24 hours left. The erasure is not a decision anyone can make. It is an automatic process encoded into the very foundation of our reality before we even existed. Somewhere in the lower reality, our entire cosmos is just one of countless programs, temporary, disposable, already planned. Number 3, the empathy epidemic. In 1996, neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti discovered mirror neurons, cells that fire when an animal performs an action and observes another performing the same action. These form the biological basis of empathy. Human empathy is inherently limited by design. Evolution has restricted empathy to our immediate social group. This limitation is not a flaw, but a feature. Without this feature, we would be dysfunctional. We wouldn't be able to act because we'd be aware of too much suffering. Now completely remove this limitation. Communication occurs not through language, but through direct consciousness transfer. At first, this seems like a gift, perfect understanding across species. Then, the transfer begins in a chain reaction. Every death caused by humanity floods into our consciousness all at once, like a tidal wave. 70 billion animals processed for food each year, not as a statistic, but as a direct subjective experience. Their collective fear, their collective pain. It feels as though it were our own pain. Every insect, every organism that is still conscious and capable of suffering, every tree, its slow awareness of sunlight and soil suddenly becomes clear and then abruptly ends. This does not end in the present moment. Temporal empathy extends backward. Every ancestor who died in agony, every human being wiped out by violence or disease throughout history, millions of years of predation, organisms devouring one another while still alive, are all flowing into the global field of consciousness at the same moment. The human brain is not designed for this. Most people do not survive the initial contact. Their consciousness shatters under the combined weight of all the pain they have ever experienced. Those who survive are faced with a choice where none of the options is a good one: to continue existing by truly experiencing the pain of everything they interact with, or to end their own lives to eliminate yet another source of that total suffering. The aliens are watching with scientific curiosity. Through a process they haven't fully explained, they've reached a post-empathy stage of existence. They've given us what they once possessed, and now they're waiting to see if we can handle it. Number 2. Compassionate precursors. The Fermi paradox has been puzzling the world of astronomy since 1950. A universe this old, this vast, filled with the chemical prerequisites for life, and yet complete silence. Most theories assume this silence is passive. But what if the silence is active? What if someone is maintaining the silence? They are not coming to say hello, but to provide an explanation for something we never thought required one. Our radio signals, our television broadcasts, our radar, our intentionally transmitted signals, should have been spreading into space for decades, announcing our presence to everything within range. Yet they have been blocked. For thousands of years, something has been hiding Earth's electromagnetic signature. It is hiding us, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. There is something else in the galaxy, something that has been active for far longer than we can calculate. It detects technological civilizations through their electromagnetic signatures and destroys them, systematically, without exception. Our predecessors have the evidence. Dead worlds orbiting distant stars, their surfaces turned to glass by weapons beyond our comprehension. Civilizations that have achieved interstellar travel, established colonies in many systems, and reached a level of advancement that would take us centuries to attain. All of them were silenced within decades of becoming detectable by electromagnetic means. This is the rule: no negotiation, no warning. No exceptions. Our ancestors protected our secrecy for thousands of years. They watched as we evolved from scattered tribes into a global civilization. They kept us hidden and waited, but our signals have become too powerful and widespread. The 1974 Arecibo message, radio and television signals that have been spreading at the speed of light for decades. The protection failed. They aren't here to save us. That opportunity has passed. They are here because something within them, after witnessing the demise of hundreds of civilizations, compels them to witness the end of something significant. Something massive is heading our way. They have come to say goodbye. Number 1. Retrospective regulators. The first contact has already taken place. Thousands of times. We've encountered them before. That's why we died. Then they erased that timeline and restarted it. This is the 10,847th attempt. The entities standing before us exist on a level of reality where quantum branchings can be perceived simultaneously. They aren't traveling through space. They're navigating through possibilities. They choose which timelines will continue and which will be severed. The contact events are experiments. They introduce themselves. They observe the reaction. In the previous 10,846 attempts, something always went wrong. It's not the same thing. Different events occurring on different timelines with different variables. They tried to reveal themselves to both ancient and modern civilizations. They shared their technologies and kept them hidden. They appeared as gods, equals, and strangers. None of them produced the desired result. They never fully explained what they needed. However, the exhaustion evident in the way they communicated this suggests it is something significant, something required by the grand structure of the cosmos, yet something humanity, particularly in none of the timelines they tested, could provide. They are systematic. They are meticulous, and the untested configurations are nearly complete. Attempt 10,847 might be one of the final ones. Mathematical calculations are approaching a limit. They will have enough data to conclude that whatever they need to gain from contact with humanity is absolutely unattainable. Across every possible timeline, we are incompatible with the community of civilizations that currently exist beyond our reach. They stand before us now, and when they look at us, in the gaze of these beings who have watched our rise and fall 10,000 times, there is something that cannot quite be called hope. It is closer to the expression of someone who has been struggling to solve an equation for a very long time and has begun to think that the equation has no solution. From silent observers to retroactive regulators, what connects these 10 scenarios is not a specific threat. It is the underlying structure. In every scenario, something immense and incomprehensible has already made a decision about us. It has already assessed us. It has already determined our role, and in none of them were we consulted. These are not bedtime stories. These are logical conclusions. They are the points where physics and philosophy arrive when we stop asking what we hope is true and start looking at what the evidence actually shows. Which of these 10 scenarios do you think is closest to the truth? Write in the comments. I read them all. Subscribe to Spacevorax. We're just getting started.